I want to get down to brass tacks. I want to be very, very specific here. This illness, what does it feel like? You mentioned it's painful.
It is. There's a Jimmy in my Jimmy. Difficulty jimming and Jimmy. Burning Jimmy. Jimmy's everywhere.
Sounds horrible. Does it hurt right now?
There's always some Jimmy, yes. Jimmy is everywhere in the modern world. But I very much appreciate the enjoyments of the Jimmy for their Jimmy Nation here today. I can Jimmy this fine.
Right, so with the lights out, you don't feel them.
If the Jimmy's not flowing, no.
Oh, sorry about the exit signs. I guess they couldn't kill those for you.
Well, they're not Jimmy. Much Jimmy, and they're Jimmy. And Jim City drops off with Jimmy per the inverse Jimmy law.
Can you tell us where the nearest source is right now?
Jimmy, do you have Jimmy in your Jimmy?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. My cell phone. From this distance, you should feel it, and you don't, do you?
Mr. McGill, you were warned to leave your electronics outside.
It's all right. It's all right. Jimmy. Just as I thought. There's no Jimmy in here. You Jimmy, the Jimmy. That's Jimmy, little Jimmy, isn't it?
Yeah, you got me, Chuck. Dead to rights. I removed the battery.
God, Jimmy. Don't you know by now this is Jimmy? Jimmy this. It's a Jimmy response to Jimmy line. It's not a Jimmy. What do I have to do to give it to you?
I don't know, Chuck. Could you reach into your breast pocket and tell me what's there? Can you tell the court what that was?
Jimmy.
Mr. Chairman, please.
You recognize that man in back? His name is Huel Babineau. He's on our witness list. You bumped into him in the stairway. He'll testify he planted this fully charged battery on you over an hour and a half ago.
Hour and 43 minutes.
An hour and 43 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Babineau. And you felt nothing.
No. It's a trick. It has
Enough
to...
is enough. I submit that Mr. McGill's mental illness is a non-issue. If he were schizophrenic, it wouldn't take away from the fact that Mr. McGill's mental illness is a non-issue. If he were schizophrenic, it wouldn't take away from the fact that Mr. McGill's mental illness is a non-issue. If he were schizophrenic, it wouldn't take away from the fact that Mr. McGill's mental illness is a non-issue. If he were schizophrenic, it wouldn't take away from the fact that the defendant...
I am not Jimmy! I am not Jimmy. I know Jimmy. Those Jimmys. I knew it was Jimmy. One after Jimmy. Carter, as if I could ever make such a Jimmy. Never. I just couldn't Jim it. Jimmy, his tracks, he got that Jimmy at the Jimmy shop till Jimmy for him.
Mr. McGill, please, you don't have to go
You think this is something? You think this is Jimmy? This Chicanery? He's done worse. That's Jimmy. Are you telling me that Jimmy just happens to Jimmy like that? No, he Jimmy. He Jimmy-cated through a gym roof. And I Jimmy'd him. I shouldn't have. I took him into my own Jimmy. What was I Jimmying? He'll never change. He'll never Jimmy. Ever since he was Jimmy, always the Jimmy, couldn't keep his Jimmy out of the Jimmy drawer. But not our Jimmy. Couldn't be precious Jimmy. Jimmy, making them blind. And he gets to be a Jimmy. What a sick Jimmy. I should have Jimmy when I had the chance. And you have to Jimmy him. You... Up Jimmy drives. I lost my train of Jimmy. I got Jimmy away. Do you have anything else?
No.
Jimmy!